Space, the final frontier. This is the Observer's Notebook, the official podcast of the Association of Lunar and Planetary Observers. Its mission to explore the solar system, to seek out new observations and data, to boldly go where no podcast has gone before. And now the host of the Observer's Notebook, Tim Robertson.
Hello and welcome to episode 205 of the Observer's Notebook, the official podcast of the Association of Lunar and Planetary Observers. I'm Tim Robertson, the host of the podcast and also the coordinator of the training program within the Association of Lunar and Planetary Observers. Thanks for downloading and listening. The ALPO collects and analyzes observations of various solar system bodies and associated phenomenon, and publishes detailed reports concerning these bodies in its quarterly publication, the Journal of the Association of Lunar and Planetary Observers. This podcast depends upon donations from you, our listeners, to keep it going. If you enjoy what you hear in the podcast, you can donate to it via Patreon. You can start by $1 a month. If you feel even more generous, for $5, you receive early access to the podcast before it goes public. For a monthly donation of $10, you receive a copy of the Novice Observer's Handbook. And for $35 a month, you receive producer credits on the podcast. You can find out more by going to www.patreon.com/observersnotebook. And if you'd like to join the ALPO, membership begins at only $22 a year. You can find out more at www.alpo-astronomy.org. And you can also find us on Facebook. Just search for ALPO Astronomy. And this podcast also has a Facebook page as well. Just search for Observer's Notebook. And if you enjoy what you hear in the podcast, please subscribe. You'll never miss another episode. Now, episode 205 with Scott Roberts of Explore Scientific. Enjoy. All right, I'd like to welcome everybody back to this edition of the Observer's Notebook podcast. And I'm very pleased to say we have on the podcast today Scott Roberts of Explore Scientific. Welcome back, Scott.
Thank you so much, Tim. Really excited to be here. It's been, I want to say that, the ALPO has been on Global Star Party a couple of times. It's been great to have you guys on, and looking forward to having you on as well.
Yeah, that's coming up soon.
Yes, it is.
Looking forward to that. Yeah. Now, you were first on the pod. This is episode 205. You were on episode. Wow. You were on episode 22.
Okay.
In 2017.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
And you talked about the future of telescopes and where the industry was at that time. So what I like now is just revisit that subject for 2025.
Sure, of course. I think that perhaps some of the stuff that we talked about might have come to pass.
Yes.
The genre of smart telescopes is certainly with us, and so everybody's looking at that, and including our company as well. But we are already distributors for Unistellar and Vianas and the Dwarf product. So.
Yeah, you made the statement that there'll be telescopes sold without eyepieces. So you won't need one. I'm like, no way. No! And now I own a C-Star. So yeah, okay.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
well, I love visual astronomy.
Oh,
too,
me too.
Yeah. And for me, I love astrophotography. I love seeing the what is invisible to the to the eye, even with the best eyepieces and big aperture and stuff. But the experience of seeing fossil light, and knowing that these are ancient photons hitting your eye, that's really the juice for me. So
I agree. Yeah, visual guy too. Now in the past year, there's been a little bit of turmoil in the telescope industry.
Yes.
And I'd like to just, because you've been involved with this for many, many years, and I figure your fingers on the pulse of the industry pretty much. But with the Meade and Orion situation, back in 2021, I had Peter Moreau, who was with Orion at the time when they acquired Meade, and I had him on the podcast.
Oh, wow. That's great.
And that was in the middle of the pandemic. and he was talking about issues they were having with suppliers and getting parts and things like that, and also trying
Sure.
to keep all their customers happy.
Yes.
Because that was a big thing. Because a lot of questions when Mead went under the umbrella of Orion, there were a lot of questions.
Right.
And you had over 20 years with Mead?
21 years. I started with them in 1986, and I ended it at the end of 2007, something like that. So I think about 21 years. Yes, sir.
Wow. So
yeah, it was wonderful. I enjoyed every day that I was at Mead Instruments, including the last day, but I knew that management had changed at Mead, and it was quickly becoming a telescope company that I didn't, quite recognize anymore. And and on top of that, Tim, I had always promised myself I would start my own business. The founder of Mead Instruments, his name is Shawn Dilles. In fact, I just talked to him a couple of weeks ago. He always encouraged people that were closest to him to become entrepreneurs themselves. Now, he was a brutal competitor in the telescope industry, and probably would not have been a fun adversary to have, competing against him in that day. But he did certainly inoculate the seeds of wanting to start my own business. And so in 2007, I was quickly becoming, it was just going to be a couple of more years and I would be 50 years old, and I got to do it now. It's now or never, so I don't want to be 60 trying to do this, so, and I realized that even starting, we're now, 15, 16 years into Explore Scientific. In retrospect, I go, gosh, I wish I had taken that step into the abyss of running your own company when I was like 30, because you really need the energy, so, but I had wonderful people around me, and the telescope business is not for the faint-hearted. It has been described by people who know the business better than I do of how volatile it is. It can be volatile because of maybe things that have occurred in recent times with Mead and Orion, but it can be volatile because of a opposition, a comet. It's whatever that the media really gloms onto.
The Halley Comet days when telescope sales were crazy, and Mars back years ago when it was a really good opposition.
That?
Oh yeah,
right. It was wild.
Yes. Yeah, I mean it was. Yeah, the telescopes are flying off the shelf. They couldn't make them fast enough.
That's true. That's true. And so if you're not really in tune with the community, but you're just a business person, you can be a great business person, and you can work in the telescope industry and sell telescopes. I guess much like, for them, maybe it's like, selling a washing machine or something, if you're a good business person, you can sell washing machines. But the telescopes, well, you're selling to people who've made amateur astronomy a lifestyle, a lot, especially when you get into the higher end of telescopes. And they need to be supported. They need to be coddled. But you also have to understand that they're going to be super interested during these times of, an amazing event. And then when they're satisfied after that event, they're not going to be buying very much, so you need to know how to run a business to survive the lean times. And so it can be feast or famine. And a lot of people, going back to my Mead days, people would say, well, why don't you guys just hire more people, And I go, well, that's all well and good, but you hire a bunch more people, you train them up and everything. And then after the event, you've got to say goodbye because business takes a turn down. So, the people you want to keep are the people that have decided to make it their career,
Yeah. Astronomy is a cyclical hobby. It really is. It has its ups and downs based upon what's in the sky.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Now, when they announced that the two they merged, and then a couple years later they no longer exist, that threw everybody I know for a loop, because all of us have bought from Meade, all of us have bought from Orion,
sure.
And now they're gone.
And now they're gone. Yes. I mean, it wasn't a secret that Meade had challenges. If you followed it, it's pretty out in the public. Some of the financial challenges that they had. They had a great team of people down in Mexico manufacturing the product. I remember when that all first started up, and they had to spin up a team to learn how to make Schmidt Cassegrains and how to, contact etalons, when they started working with the Coronado product. So we spent a lot of time brainstorming on how we could make the products better, how to innovate new features, this kind of thing. It was a lot of fun. As I mentioned, the business did change, and that had to do with changes in management. And, so I felt that, with the change in management that they did have, unfortunately, the guy at the helm didn't really understand the telescope industry, wasn't into astronomy at all. Okay. Yeah. And I think that's a mistake to put someone in at the top of a company and for them not to understand their community.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Yeah. Now we are recording this January 3rd, and later, and I think the 7th through the 9th, they're having an auction. They're going to be auctioning for all their stuff, and I signed up for it. I probably don't have enough money to buy anything, but I'm looking at what's available, and there's a ton of things available. I mean, they're selling everything from filters to forklifts.
Right?
Liquidating
that's
everything.
What happens when you get a company to kind of liquidate a company like that. So certainly. Meade and Orion had a lot of inventory, probably a lot of raw material as well, and machines and stuff. So if you're looking to get into the telescope industry, there's probably some interesting things to look at, like lens polishing machines and that kind of thing. Meade had a bunch of CNC machines as well. Orion was not a manufacturer. Right. They would have products made to their specifications, and so I can only imagine that when Orion first took over Meade Instruments, that they had aspirations to make some, really unique products out there, but there were challenges, I guess, they could not overcome.
Yeah. So is Explorer Scientific looking to acquire any of the products that are available?
Me in particular, I think I would buy brand new equipment if I was going to do some of the stuff that Meade was doing. Some of the equipment is older that's over there, and it would probably be more of an advantage for me to buy brand new polishing machines if I was going to start polishing glass, for example. Okay. Got it. As far as the finished product and stuff, these are other brands, Meade and Orion, and great brands, wonderful brands, but certainly I did think about it, but it's hard to sell something in that way. We're not a retail store. I mean, I have retail sales, but I'm not a retail store. Okay.
Right.
We're a designer and manufacturer, and you can buy direct from us, of course, but I have dealers that I answer to, and and we have brands that we've already taken on that we really have to support.
If you would suddenly have an influx of Orion Dobsonians, that would piss somebody off.
I mean, I haven't been advertising Orion, right. And that's what it takes. So you need to be able to do that. If you were a retailer, a dealer for Orion, for example, maybe you've been advertising that you sell Orion for 10, 20 years, whatever.
Yeah.
Then you've got a sales channel there, and it would make sense that they might take some of that stuff on.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. Yeah. Now, along with this, there's also a class action lawsuit with Sienkiewicz.
Yes, and that's been going on for these lawsuits have been going on for quite a while, and so that depending on how you look at that, there was the lawsuit that Orion had with Sunny Optical, and that's how they acquired Mead. They won a judgment by jury, and they lost. Sunny. It wasn't Mead Instruments it lost. It was Sunny, who owned Mead Instruments, lost that lawsuit, and the jury awarded treble damages. Now, a lot of people don't know what treble damages are, but let's just say that you're in a lawsuit with someone and they've done something that a jury thinks is egregious, that really just over the top, and that they intended to hurt you. Okay. And so that was kind of the judgment that was awarded to Peter Marrero and Orion against Sunny, but they didn't have that kind of money. It was, I think that the lawsuit was like 16 million originally. And so triple that. And that's what they were. That's what, triple meant. And so instead of giving them money, Sunny gave them the asset of Mead Instruments.
Okay. Wow. And it's basically, wasn't it a price fixing thing with telescope prices too that was part of it?
Well, they kept referring back to collusion, so, price fixing and a number of things like that. Exactly what happened, I wasn't involved with it.
Right.
The founder of Mead Instruments, he's been away from Mead for a long time. He, in our phone call, he says, he says, were you involved in that? And I go, no. I was not involved with that at all. And
I was reviewing the lawsuit earlier, and your name's nowhere in it. No,
I don't need those kind of headaches.
No, I'm sure. Yeah. So taking this where the industry has been in the past 12 months, where do you see it going? How do we recover? There is some volatility, but during a time of volatility, there's always opportunity too. Orion and Mead Instruments were great big tent poles in the category of the telescope industry. And when you lose a couple of tent poles in a giant tent, part of that tent comes down. Okay. And so the customer base is interested in variety. They want to see different brands, different things, new innovation, competition between the companies, and that spurs on innovation. So they want to see that continue. The thing that I'm grateful for is that there is still good competition out there. Yeah,
there are smaller companies that are doing a good job. And So I think that people can expect continued innovation, and the era of the smart telescope, which we alluded to earlier, will continue to grow. And I still see it being if you're someone that's thinking, gosh, I'd like to be in the telescope industry, I would say that there's still going to be, a vibrant industry going forward. But there will be a period of adjustment, and that's already started. So,
yeah. Now, has this had a side effect of helping help Explore Scientific grow?
I would say, you would expect me to say, yeah, it's been a giant windfall. Okay. But that's not how this works. Okay. When you lose tent poles in an industry, it has the effect of making your client base smaller.
Oh,
okay. So a lesson learned a long time ago when I was at Mead Instruments, I was a sales manager for most of the nature type stores, nature science stores. So those would have included the Discovery Channel store,
right.
Zany Brainy, Noodle Cadoodle, Natural Wonders. I mean, there was probably a dozen different companies out there that were into this, so you go in these stores and there would be fossils, there would be amazing photography, books on nature, items that kids could afford, and things that were maybe higher end for, to put into your home and stuff like that. And most of these stores carried nice telescopes. And these were in AAA malls across the country. And so what happened was there was a competition between Natural Wonders and the Discovery Channel store. And Natural Wonders ended up, they had spent too much. They had stretched themselves too thin being in AAA malls, which is very expensive to do. And they filed for bankruptcy. And I was at the home office for Discovery Channel stores, retail stores, which was up in Berkeley at the time of that announcement. And people were like throwing papers in the air. They're jumping up and down. They're so excited that this competition is left, And I just kind of had this kind of ominous feeling like, oh my God, because that was my other account, right? And so, right. And so, okay, I watched them go down. And then I watched Zany Brainy go down and FAO Schwartz go down, which is still a store. They have one store or two stores that I know about. Okay. But all their competition started falling like dominoes, and then it was only Discovery Channel was the last, last man standing. And you would have thought that there was roughly about $35 million in telescope retail that just evaporated.
Oh my.
You don't see those stores in the malls anymore.
No, you don't. You don't see malls anymore.
And you don't see malls anymore. So that's another thing that's happening. So there's been several turns in the road, right? E-commerce, of course, being probably the most dramatic of them. But Discovery Channel had e-commerce going. Natural Wonders did too. And they just could not make it. And without competition, it's almost every entrepreneur dreams of wiping out their competition and having all the business, but that doesn't happen. Okay, what you should dream about is a vibrant, healthy, very competitive category. Okay, because it's the category that the businesses live in. It's the category that brands live in, and it is the customer that owns these brands. Okay, it's not the companies themselves, not real ownership, because It's the people that the customers breathe life into a brand. They support that brand by their loyalty.
Yep.
And so, some people don't understand that when they go into business. They think that they're the brand and that they're the ones driving everything. But it's very much the customer. And so, I always do my best to support the community that supports us.
No, and that's one thing you've done for years. I mean, I first met you at Riverside Telescope Makers Conference years ago, and I took one of my best friends to RTMC one year, his first ever, and he won the 8-inch Meade Cassegrain at his very first. And he goes, "Now what do I do with this?" I said, "Well, I'll show you how to use it."
I'll show you how exactly.
Yeah, but you've been involved and supported the ALPO for years. I mean, you always give us amazing door prizes for our conference, which is coming up later this year.
Right. Yeah. And we'll support for sure.
I know, but we appreciate you for that. We really, really do. And, what you've done for the industry too. I mean,
what they've done for me, I mean, and for the people I work around, has been, really miraculous. And I consider myself to be lucky to be involved in it and honored to be, interacting with this community of, I named my company Explore Scientific because I wanted a company that was named after what it does, so, I love where we can, I love to support, the community, and I love to promote the community, and, I love seeing good competition. So it's just a really interesting time, an amazing time to be in amateur astronomy. And I will add that even though there's this kind of turmoil going on, that the industry of astrotourism and the interest in astronomy and space has probably never been greater.
Yeah. And the innovation is what's getting me to. I mean, when you talked about telescopes without eyepieces 7 years when we talked, I thought, well, this is not 7 years away. Happen. This is 25 years away. And I am blown away by this little sea star. I just.
Oh yeah. A lot of my friends that are into, have nice telescopes. And Tim, I imagine you have a beautiful rig or two or three.
Yeah, I got a 6-inch Explore Scientific. Yeah, Matt.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, the sea stars and any of these, the Vianas, the Unistellar, to be able to set these things up and, let them, in an automated way, capture images for you. Can allow you to, if you've never done astrophotography,
right,
you're going to walk away with some shots that you're going to be pretty proud of, if you've never done science really before. Now, so much of it is automated that you can actually concentrate on, what you got to do to report science events, that kind of thing. Unistellar probably has done that best as far as, hiring, the science team that it takes and all the rest of it. So they've done some amazing stuff. Frank Marchus is the guy that leads that. He's one of the founders of Unistellar. And, the stuff they've done with this little 4.5-inch telescope or 4-inch reflectors, just mind numbing, where they network, several telescopes together and compile data and do it. They were doing it live, and submitting it live, so it was very cool.
Yeah. And, things like photometry are easy to do.
Easy. That's right.
With these telescopes. I mean, they're smart in many ways. Yeah. I got to tell you, the first night I had my sea star, set it up outside on my patio, with street lights all over the place. And I put it on M42. And I went in the house. My wife and I are sitting watching a hockey game, and I've got my iPad in between us, and I'm watching the images come up on my iPad. And I'm like, honey, look at this.
Look at this.
15 minutes later, I had a gorgeous photograph. I'm like, I'm not an astrophotographer. That was the very first photo of M42 I have taken in 50 years of astronomy.
Yeah, it's quite. It feels like such a huge accomplishment, and it is.
It just blew, but it was easy. That's the thing. It just made it so easy. That's the way all these smart telescopes are.
Yes. Well, there's a lady down. She is an ALPO member, and I think she's also an AA VSO member. And she's watching T Corbeau with her Sea Star. I mean, every clear night, and so I half expect one of these smart telescopes. There's several different brands of them and such.
Right.
But I would not be surprised if the discovery or the recovery of the peak brightness of T Corbeau isn't done with the smart scope. So
no reason it shouldn't be.
Right.
Yeah. So 7 years ago, you gave a bold prediction. I thought was crazy. What prediction do you have now that we
What's
can look
my bold prediction going forward?
What can we look at for the technology of telescopes, the optics, the drives, the cameras? What do you see?
Yeah.
In your crystal ball?
Well, one of the things that has kind of happened is there has been some amateur astronomers that are taking high-speed cameras and doing very short exposures of deep sky objects, and adding them up so that they've got an hour or several hours of exposure. And they're doing this with undriven telescopes, Dobsonians. No drive. They push the telescope so that the object's at one edge of the field of view of the camera, and then just shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot. But the exposures are so short that you don't see movement of the stars, the individual exposures. And then they stack and stack and stack, and until they get enough signal in the image to start image processing with it. And so there is a product by Vianis that does this, where it just uses a smartphone. I've tested it and was able to get images. I mean, there's no tracking. You just put this thing on a photo tripod. It's static. So no go-to system, no electronics,
oh my goodness,
no batteries, with the exception of your camera. Okay. And the camera is a smartphone. You lay your smartphone over it, and it captures images. Now, this is the field of view is really wide. The exposure times again are fairly short. But I was examining, and in fact, it's up on my screen right now on AstroBin, and this guy has got a shot of M27 that he did with an Explore Scientific 10-inch truss tube Dobsonian. No tracking. Okay. And this was done in France, and the guy, I think he just goes by the name of Backyard or something. So that's his nickname. But just an incredible image of M27 with the outer. You can see the shells within it. You can see, of course, the faint central stars, and it's just amazing. It was a 40 minutes of 500 millisecond subs. He says under pretty good conditions, no moon. He says he was quite pleased to see some of the outer O3 ejections, albeit they were really noisy and dim on the raw stack. When you see the image on AstroBin, your jaw just drops. It's like that was done with a Dobsonian telescope. So
what do you say? Half second exposures?
500 milliseconds.
500 milliseconds.
Really short. Boom, 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 boom.
With a cell phone.
No, not with the cell phone.
Okay, that wasn't the cell phone.
No, not with the cell phone. He was using a Player One Uranus C camera, right? So
crazy.
Yeah. So yeah, these kinds of things can be done. So, we have a guy that comes on Global Star Party. We call him Nico the Hammer, and Nico shoots with a Dobsonian telescope. He just could not afford a rig that you would imagine, with, the nice drives and all the rest of it. So he shoots, lots of very short exposures, gets these incredible treasures from the Southern Hemisphere, and blows away all of his friends, because he's using such simple equipment. Now, I kind of see a split. I still see people shooting with beautiful, clock drive, go-to system equipment. What's popular right now are harmonic drives, or what they call strain wave drives.
Okay.
And they're small, they're strong. You don't have to balance your that's one of the advantages of not balancing your telescope. I guess that's okay if you have a small telescope. If you have a big telescope, folks, you better balance it, because if it flips over and hits you, that's bad.
That's
not going to be fun. But yeah, it is possible for someone with a modest investment to get a good camera, a decent camera, not one that's going to break the bank, but a decent camera, a 8, 10, or 12 inch, or whatever size Dobsonian, and start to make images this way. And they can, really start working on the image processing side, which is, at least the other half of astrophotography,
Right. So are there any new product innovations from Explorer coming out that we should look forward to?
We always have things that are coming out. I can't talk about them yet.
Oh, nothing you can share, nothing you can hit
on? Nothing I can share right at the moment.
Didn't you mention a smart telescope, maybe?
I can tell. What I'll just say is that every telescope company out there is working on a smart telescope.
I hope so. Yeah.
I'll say that. Okay.
Great.
And we're a telescope company too. So, okay. All right. So I'll go that far.
Okay. That sounds good.
But regarding all the kind of turbulent times and the shock and awe of the loss of a couple of really big and great companies is something that was felt throughout the community and throughout the telescope industry and all the rest of it. But we are, if you're in this community, if you've been into it for a while, I would say that almost everybody, knows how to take a kick in the gut and, and stand back up and keep going, So, we had, a good year, a solid year in 2024. I'm looking forward to a great year in 2025.
Good.
And
nice to know you're not going anywhere. Good.
Not going anywhere.
No surprises from you guys. Okay.
What's that?
No surprises from Explorer Scientific.
Yeah, I would like to think that we can continue on.
Okay, good. I like that.
So I think that we will. It's but with any industry and any company, there's always challenges, and if you're, I guess the minute that you feel like you got knocked down a little bit, if you don't get back up, just have the will to get back up, then that's probably your sign that you're done, but if you do get back up and you just go, look, this is part and parcel of being in business, okay, which it is, then you're going to stay in business, you'll figure it out. And, I mentioned Shawn Dilles and his encouragement for people around him to become entrepreneurs. He would take us to the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year Awards, okay, in Orange County, California. And we got to hear story after story of businessmen that had tried to go into business for themselves and literally got wiped out 2 or 3 times. And when I say get wiped out, I mean really everything, losing their house, filing bankruptcy, losing it all, and then deciding, well, I'm going to dust myself off and go do it again. Okay. And, so it's to those guys that usually they end up being the big winners, so I've been lucky in, I've had small businesses that didn't make it, but Explore Scientific has been supported very well by our partners. And so, I think that we'll be fine and we continue on. So
great. Now you mentioned the Global Star Party. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. One of my favorite subjects.
Good.
Yeah.
Now it's a YouTube event.
It is a simulcast program. Okay. I started it, I think 4 years ago, and during the height of COVID, we couldn't go out anywhere, and people couldn't do their astronomy club meetings. They couldn't go to star parties. We were in lockdown, and a lot of the community got kind of depressed over that. And I thought, well, gosh, there's got to be a way with all this relatively inexpensive technology to broadcast a program. So I started reading up on how to do it. I first off used Skype, and I was using broadcasting software that was out there. And I eventually settled on using a combination of something called was it called Easy or Ecamm Live, which is kind of a scene changer and a scene switcher, and would allow you to bring in multiple cameras. Zoom, which allows you to bring in, several speakers. So we'll have like a dozen speakers come on. And then a restreaming product, in fact, called Restream. And that allows you to stream out to several channels simultaneously. And so, through a lot of mistakes that I made in setting up sound and cameras and all the rest of it, I kind of self-taught. And we're now up to our 156th event, something like that. Yeah. And
how frequent are they?
At one point I haven't counted in a long time, but while none of our shows would be what I would call viral, sensations, I will tell you that in aggregate, that we've hit well over 1 million people in doing that. And so you think if you're an outreach enthusiast, you like to do sidewalk astronomy, or you like to do things with your club and stuff, hitting 1,000 people is like a big number, and if you can do something where you can have people around the world watch you and participate with you, because they get to do live chat and they get to ask questions and stuff, to have that, and have an audience of tens of thousands, as the program runs, especially in rerun these days. We don't have the big numbers like we did when we were in lockdown, but we have people that watch us on their own time, because once they broadcast, they're recorded. And so they can go back and watch them and that kind of thing. So it's just very gratifying to me to have people on like yourself, have the Astronomical League on. David Levy he's
a regular.
He's a co-host of the program. He's been on every time, that we've run these shows. David Eicher from, the editor-in-chief of Astronomy Magazine, he's on most of the shows. Astronomical League has been on in rotation, and it looks like ALPO will be on regularly as we go on into the future. So
that's the plan. Now, how frequently do you have these?
was doing them every week, but once we started traveling again and doing that kind of thing, I just could not keep up the pace. So we do them about twice a month.
Okay.
Right
now, how would my listeners find out about when you're going to be doing
them? They would watch on Facebook. They could go to the Explore Scientific Facebook page and see announcements there. They can, of course, they can go onto our own website at explorescientific.com. We will be posting, Global Star Party announcements there. I'll say here on the show that our next one is January 14th, starts at 6 p.m. Central.
Okay, great. Well, Scott, is there anything else you'd like to share with us today?
I just want to share that, honestly, we are so grateful to the community of amateur astronomers, very, very grateful to be working with the ALPO, and they're very honored to be on your podcast. So thank you so much.
It's always a pleasure to chat with you, Scott. It really is. And I want to thank you for coming on today.
All right. Thanks.
All right, that'll do it for this episode of the Observer's Notebook podcast. I really want to thank Scott Roberts for coming on today. I hope you all enjoyed the conversation. I think it was pretty enlightening to the status of the industry and where we're going. We upload an episode of the Observer's Notebook on the 1st and 15th of every month. You can subscribe to us on iTunes. If you do, please give us a rating and a review. I'd really appreciate it. You can also listen to us on Apple Radio, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Google Play, Stitcher, Amazon Echo, Spotify, and this podcast is also available on the ALPO YouTube channel. You can help support the podcast by donating to it via Patreon, where you can give up to $35 a month, where you will receive 1 year's membership to the ALPO and producer credits on the podcast. And with that, I really want to thank the producers of this podcast, Steve Siedentop and Michael Moyer, for their generous support. The link for Patreon, as well as the link for the ALPO, is in the show notes. If you'd like to get a hold of me, my email address is commentman@commentman.net. Until next time, I hope you always have clear and steady skies. Thanks for listening.